Welcome, Climate Viewers. It's Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com. It's October 25th, 2021. And we got some breaking news on the whole cloudy front. Now they're talking about getting rid of contrails by avoiding ice supersaturated regions, but wait for it. Could this mean more geoengineering? Many of you have these questions. We've all wanted to see the clouds disappear and the skies clear, but will this actually worsen the problem? I think so. And oh wait, there's a carbon tax tied to the end of this. We're going to get into all that right now. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Love you, mean it. Appreciate you. And if you can support my work, I greatly appreciate it. But right to the story. This is breaking 3 days ago. I wanted to get to it a little earlier, but as you're going to see in the video, I've been working on weathermodificationhistory.com, and it's almost done, and it's going to be absolutely freaking beautiful. Contrails, how tweaking flight plans can help the climate, on BBC News. Now, there's a lot in this article, and I could read the whole thing to you and bore you to tears. But we're going to focus on the important stuff, because at the end of the day, yes, they're talking about how aviation's only 2.4% of global CO2 emissions, but the warming effect of trapping clouds trapping heat may account for more than 57% of the entire climate impact of aviation. Now, specifically, they're talking about how clouds trap heat, how they block sunlight, solar radiation management during the day, but at night they trap more heat than they actually cool during the day, leading to a net warming effect. This is what most likely the cause of, any ice melt, polar problems we're having. But they've long ignored that. As you'll see in the video, it's pretty sad. But they talk about all this, they trap and absorb outgoing heat, which otherwise escapes into space. This worsens at night when it's colder and contrails have a longer lifetime. Now they go into, how they could tweaking flight elevation by just 1,000 feet can stop some contrails from forming. Now, just a reminder, contrail, chemtrail, doesn't matter what you call it, turns into a cirrus cloud. Cirrus clouds matter. And that's why we have a problem. We need to get rid of these clouds. I've been saying this for a very long time. Many of you know this, that the cloud problem is worse than the CO2 problem when we're talking about planes. So they say that a relatively small portion of flights contribute to the majority of climate impact. So if we can alter these flights, we can significantly reduce the climate impact. But wait for it, there's a lot of problems with this. So they used the HALO, which is the high altitude, long range cloud sniffer, to go up and, basically predict when they were going to actually form the dumped Glenn Beck for you this morning. I appreciate you. They actually were using software to predict when they would actually form clouds. Now, this goes against everything that you've heard by other prominent, chemtrail, geoengineering websites that, of course, say this is all, everything you're hearing, everything you're seeing, it's all, from pipes and pumps. It's intentionally, this. I don't throw that. I throw that out the window, because at the end of the day, could there be CIA covert geoengineering? Sure. But let's be real. The majority of what we're seeing is and has been going on since 1958. Well documented. See my entire series of videos on cirrus clouds matter. It's on the front page of my YouTube channel. You can't miss it. And you'll know that this is just fact. So why is this important? I'm just going to skip right to the end, because they talk about reducing contrails and, you know, how this would be relatively cheap by avoiding ice supersaturated regions. Maybe we'll do a video on that in the future so that you guys can understand that basically there are these, you know, really dense water vapor areas in the sky. And when you fly through them with a jet that is spewing out metal chemicals and soot, that you're going to create clouds. So they want to avoid ice supersaturated regions so that they don't make clouds. And then this is the part that really just gets my goat right here. So as they say, meanwhile, atmospheric scientist Professor Ken Caldera. Now this should be a big freaking alarm bell for most of my listeners, because you guys should already know who Ken Caldera is, but we'll get to that right after this. From Carnegie Institution of Science, makes a compelling case. He estimates preventing the most damaging climate impact of contrails would cost less than $1 billion per year. The net value of the benefit could be more than 1,000 times that. Quote, Ken Caldera, we know of no comparable climate investment with a similarly high likelihood of success. He wrote in the scientific journal Nature. Oh, wait, what was that called? Open new tab. Contrails, tweaking flight altitude could be a climate win. This is May 18th, 2021. Now, having Ken Caldera talking about this is concerning to say the least. But anyway, so could a financial penalty focus minds in aviation more quickly? Dr. Andrew Gettleman of the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR, says while more research is needed, a contrail tax or avoidance rebate could be introduced if a carbon tax were approved. This is a huge red flag. So not only are we talking about the fact that, well, we could avoid making contrails that turn into cirrus clouds, and that would be a really big deal, but we could also have a carbon tax, a contrail tax, if a carbon tax were approved. Quote, we haven't seen the overall regulatory scheme yet for carbon in aviation, but once we get a larger regime in place for mitigating climate change and reducing carbon, then we can tackle the contrail problem properly. Red alert. If you guys want to see clear blue skies, if you want to get rid of all the freaking chemtrails, you want to see the contrails gone, you want the plane farts to stop, guess what? We're going to need a contrail tax. And in order to do that, a contrail tax might actually force the aviation industry to then stop farting all over our skies. This pisses me off. I'm slightly livid. But let's get into the rest of the facts before I get too heated about it. So let's do a little bit of quick history, and it's contrail tax, or carbon tax to contrail tax to convince the airline industry to finally clean up their act. But wait, that's not going to happen. So why do we know this? Because back in 2015, 6 freaking years ago, I went to the EPA and I spoke on C-SPAN about this at a hearing in Washington, D.C. And what did I say to them? Take it away, myself.
Strongly encourage the EPA to consider expanding the scope of this endangerment to include metal particulates and cloud formation from jet exhaust. If the EPA complies with the spirit of the Clean Air Act, they will protect us from metal aerosols attributed to Alzheimer's, autism, cancer, and a plethora of other debilitating illnesses. If the EPA is truly concerned about aviation-induced climate change, they will regulate the production of contrails and cirrus clouds, which change our climate to a much greater extent than the sum of the 6 greenhouse gases named in this proposal.
Said it in 2015, the chemtrails, the contrails, the plane farts, whatever you want to call them, they changed the climate more than the sum of all the greenhouse gas emissions they were trying to regulate from the airline industry. Now, all of a sudden we want a carbon tax, a contrail tax. Maybe we'll do something about this. It's kind of insulting. Here I am, me and my high school diploma, schooling these NGO fools on something they all have known for years and years and years, and now they're finally admitting it in public. They should be kicked in the teeth. Now, how do we know this? Back in 2010, they kind of recognized that they should be grounded, put in time out, because at the end of the day, how the ICAO failed to tackle aviation and climate change and what should happen now. And this was at the Triennial Assembly in October of 2010. That's the International Civil Aviation Organization, who I raked over the coals at that EPA hearing you just saw. And Ulrich Schumann, the ICAO colloquium on aviation and climate change, came up with this idea of climate optimized routing of flights. And specifically, he was talking about how to detect and avoid creating contrails. And he shows it right here with his tool called the Contrail Cirrus Simulation and Prediction Tool. So they want to actually build this in. As you can see in the original article, they actually show it in the cockpit right here. A Flight Keys cockpit system prototype visualizing the cost optimum speed and altitude range at every point along a flight. So basically, Ulrich Schumann's COSIP is now being worked into the idea of, creating this contrail avoidance software to put in all the planes, but that's not really going to happen. And that was pretty sneak peek of the new weather modification history website right here, in beautiful black. I love my dark theme. Don't you love my dark theme? But they also said that they want less warming and more cooling contrails. So which is it? Do you not want to make clouds, or do you want to make less warming and more, underscore, big freaking bold letters, more cooling contrails? Predictable for operational planning. Well, that's exactly what they're going to do. They want prediction for operational planning, so they know when they're making clouds and if they're going to cool the planet or not. Regardless, this is the problem. This is the start of the problem. Now back to that Ken Caldera guy. So why is Ken Caldera such a big problem? Because he happens to be the largest author of solar radiation management papers, period. And you can see it right here. Who's paying for geoengineering solar radiation management or solar geoengineering? The National Science Foundation is the largest contributor. You see the Fund for Innovative Climate and Energy Research here. That's Bill Gates, NASA, the European Commission. These are the people that are, paying for the studies. U.S. Department of Energy, NCAR, which we mentioned in the article already. But over here on the side, these are the scientists that are writing the papers that are talking about all, geoengineering ideas. And Ken Caldera is the biggest bubble on this graph, next to Alan Robach, and David Keith is all the way up here. His ball's not so big. But Ben Kravitz, these are the main three, and Philip. But whatever. So where does this come from? This comes from a study in 2014, mapping the landscape of climate engineering. And they actually break down who's paying for it, who's writing. It says a data set of 825 scientific publications. Clearly, Ken Caldera is at the top of that list. So I find it highly problematic that Ken Caldera is attaching his name to this idea. And why is that? Because commercial aviation creating ice haze and accidental geoengineering. Now, a lot of people probably have never even heard of this, but what Chuck Long was talking about, as he put right here, I'm talking about a subvisual contrail generated haze of ice, which we do not classify as a cloud, but gives a blue sky a more whitish tint. Now, that's a problem. And it's a problem because if you look at the reference section down here, he actually wrote this paper and gave a presentation, Evidence of Clear Sky Daylight Whitening. Are we already conducting geoengineering? And in it, he basically points to the fact that the sky is brightening, or what they call sky brightening. In all of these locations, all these studies, he shows this. Ice crystals are not spherical, and he shows a sundog. This is the ice haze he's talking about. This is the problem that nobody's talking about. That planes are not only creating clouds, but they're whitening the sky. That's why when you look straight up overhead, it could be almost blue. And as you point down towards the horizon, it's a thick, milky white. All of that is buildup from planes' exhaust, from the soot and metals that are building up in the atmosphere and water vapors attaching to it, creating a subvisual haze of ice. Why am I bringing this up, Jim? What in the hell are you even talking about here? Well, the problem is that with this whole contrail avoidance scheme they're talking about, they're not going to do anything about how airplane contrails may be creating accidental geoengineering. In fact, they could be making it worse, because if you fly the planes at a higher altitude, reminder, planes typically fly right along what's called the tropopause, or the area where the troposphere meets the stratosphere. So if the planes are flying along the tropopause and you tell them to fly a couple thousand feet higher, that means that the chemicals coming out of the back of the planes are going to stay in the air longer, and that is going to create more ice haze, more accidental geoengineering. So you tell me, what do you think? What do you think the obvious goal here is, well, here's our problem. We can't do much about it. But if you pass a carbon tax, then we could maybe make a contrail tax, which would force the airline industry to install software on their flights to avoid ice supersaturated regions, to avoid making clouds. But in order to do that, they're going to have to fly higher. And if they fly higher, then they're going to create more ice haze, which, as we just pointed out, would be more accidental geoengineering from dissipating haze from plane exhaust, alters how sunlight reaches the earth, and may be unintentionally affecting our climate. So pick your poison. Will it be the carbon tax, the contrail tax, the flying higher? Can we get rid of the clouds but actually whiten the sky more? It's already so bright. My future's so bright, I gotta wear shades, and that means me putting my contacts on and taking these glasses off. But many of you have already noticed that the sky is brightening. I hear it all the time, especially from people in California who talk about going out on clear days and the sun is just burning you to a crisp because there's more diffuse light generated because of this ice haze. So we got a lot of problems. This is a really big issue. And you're not going to hear this on the other chemtrail and geoengineering channels, websites, because they don't want to talk about the science. They don't want to talk about the real problems. The real problems we're facing right now are very complex and they're very nuanced. That's why I appreciate all you climate viewers who are doing your homework and following along with this and helping to share, because sharing is caring. And of course, I am shadow banned, so I greatly appreciate everybody who shares my work. Let me know in the comments what you think. Which is the worst bitter pill of this story? That in order to get rid of the chemtrail, contrail, plane fart, cirrus clouds, where you might have to swallow a carbon tax to get a contrail tax, that even if we do get rid of the clouds and they get all the things they want, they're going to fly the planes higher, which is going to create more ice haze, which is more geoengineering. That Ken Caldera, the geoengineer in chief, is actually advocating for flying planes higher, which he knows would put more soot and metals into the stratosphere, which is what they've been trying to do since 1994 when Ken Caldera was working at Lawrence Livermore National Lab with Dr. Evil himself, Lowell Wood. So you let me know in the comments, where am I wrong? What am I missing? It seems bad all around. I, as much as anybody else, want to see clear skies. I don't want my children growing up in a world where the same website, the same company, BBC, said telescopes useless by 2050 because of plane farts. Because as air traffic increases, we're going to get to a point where we can't even see the stars at night ever again. Daytime, nighttime won't matter. We cannot have that future. And the airline industry was sued in 1970 by 2 states, Illinois, New Jersey. All of this is documented on weathermodificationhistory.com. They got out of it. They were sued again in 2015. I went to the EPA and in Washington, D.C., and I told them, look, screw greenhouse gases coming out of these planes. Not my concern. My concern, your concern, is metal particulates and freaking cloud creation. It's a problem. They don't care. They don't have a way out of this anytime soon. And all of the solutions being put forward seem pretty darn bad. Let me know in the comments what you think. Please gently smush that like button. If you don't like my face, hit the dislike button. I don't really care, but please leave a comment because it really screws with the Google algorithm. And we are shadow banned, so all the screwing you can do, the better. So please leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. Tell them to subscribe as well. And use this information, because with information comes power. With power comes great responsibility. So please use this information to attack ideas, not people. Love you, mean it.